Welcome to Echelon Orchid, episode 135. And on this episode, we're going to be talking about the Mamba, Kobe Bryant, and his 10 rules for life. I'm going to give a little spin as to how I feel it's going to help develop you into a better leader. So, I hope you enjoy the show, and if you do, go ahead and like. If it sucked, go ahead and dislike. Either way, please provide some comments. I'm looking to provide better content for you all, and I can't get better if I don't get some constructive feedback. And without further ado, episode 135. Welcome to episode 135. And like I said in the intro, we're going to be talking a little bit about the Mamba, Kobe Bryant. You know, many people will argue whether or not Michael Jordan versus LeBron. I'm always still wondering why Kobe's name isn't more into that mix. This guy is, to me, the absolute example of what it takes to achieve greatness. There's going to be plenty of people that didn't necessarily like Kobe, but I got to tell you, one, he left this world way too young. The unfortunate accident happened with himself and his daughter, and amongst others in that helicopter accident. But I think there were so many things that we could have continued to learn from Kobe Bryant. So we're going to go over his 10 rules. I'm going to give you a little bit of spin. Hopefully you like it. Go ahead and if you haven't subscribed, the subscription's in one of these corners. I never remember which. One of these days I'll actually test that out and see where it's at. But, you know, not there yet. All right. So, Kobe Bryant's 10 rules. Rule number 1, get better every single day. And, you know, we've talked about this many times on the show. I look for that 2% improvement week over week. So, well, actually, that's not true. 2 hours of improvement week over week, which should hopefully result in a 2% improvement month over month. So you're consistently getting better. And remember, this all came about because I read from somewhere that you could reinvent yourself every 5 years. And I look at always trying to find ways in order to shorten that. And I believe you can do so in just under 3 years. I think the number comes out to be 35 months. I could be wrong. But regardless of that, 2% month over month, you start compounding it, you're going to get better, and you're going to get better very quickly. So I think you absolutely have to do this every day. For me, to say at a minimum, I had a good day. Just a good day. No matter what else happened, if I do these 2 things, I had a good day. I learned something new, and I taught someone something new. And so if I did that, not only am I improving myself in some capacity every single day, I'm also helping someone else improve. Remember, that leadership aspect is not just what you're doing for yourself, but how quickly that you've done something for yourself can you go around and get that and multiply that to all the people you come into contact with. It amplifies everything. The more we can amplify, the faster we grow, the faster we innovate, the faster we get to our destination. Now, I love this next one. Prove them wrong. That's Kobe Bryant's second rule for life. Prove them wrong. You're going to have haters. There's always going to be people that are going to tell you why you can't do something, why you're going to fail. And, you know, and I really don't, I'm trying to figure out, you know, this is all kind of live, conscious thought for this. I'm really trying to be better at turning something that sounds negative into a positive. So let's see, prove them wrong. You know what? I'm going to change this and say, prove yourself right. You have envisioned where you want to be or what you're going to do, and that's your future self. And remember, in some of those things, it's like, hey, if you could imagine yourself in 5 years, what advice would you give you today in order to achieve that growth? So prove your future self right. I like that one better. Prove your future self right. Not taking anything away from the Mamba. I get it. He's a competitor. He wants to prove everyone wrong. I think it's just going to be better for myself internally and for hopefully all of you out there. I'm going to turn that negative into a positive. And so prove your future self right. Number 3. Now, the Mamba, and this is where him and I are definitely going to disagree on this. Now, maybe it could just be in nomenclature, and that's perfectly fine. But this, again, because it comes out of the negative. This one I already kind of knew how I wanted to position it. The one before, I didn't know. I didn't think about it until I caught myself. I kind of felt my judge coming out in me, and I didn't like that. So I flipped that around pretty quick. So the Mamba would say work on your weaknesses. Now, I'm going to slightly alter this. If you're looking to attain a new skill because it's going to help you be more rounded as a person or as a leader, great, because you're looking to acquire a new skill. I don't look at acquiring a new skill as something that is a weakness. A weakness happens to be in different things that we're just not good at because it goes against our nature. Remember, we talked about this a couple shows ago, that character building and are we going towards our purpose? Who are we as a person? There are things that I'm just not good at, and it's a weakness. And no amount of effort do I put into that am I going to turn that weakness into a strength. I don't want to do that. I work in a team. I'm not a solo person. And actually, none of us are solo people at this point in time. At least I can't think of it unless you own your own business and you're doing your own thing. But even still, you had to rely on something. So we have people that are around us whose strengths are our weaknesses. So surround yourself with those people because they're also going to think differently than you. And if they think different, then you're going to solve more problems faster because you think different. And I don't mean the aspect of necessarily getting into the political spectrum of this, because that's not what that's intended for. Though I would always encourage you to talk to people who have a different viewpoint than you, but in this case, it's how we think. We have people who think more like an artist. We have people that think like an athlete, the sage. Did I mention artist or engineer? Anyway, athlete, artist, engineer, sage. All right, we all think differently in how we want to be innovative. So you want those different kinds of people in the room. So I believe that aspect of getting better every single day can include, which is rule number 1, rule number 3, instead of work on your weakness, you could be either work on improving your strengths, work on finding people's strengths that are your weaknesses, or what I like to say is, let's go ahead and try and acquire a new skill, which that one rolls back into number 1. Doesn't mean you're actually going to get it to a skill, because you might find that you just don't enjoy that. And if you don't enjoy it, why do it? And I'm not talking about something that that you necessarily have to result in joyfulness. What I mean is, if you do not like doing that, you should go find something you like doing. That gets back into your purpose. There's always going to be things about a job that we don't particularly enjoy, which is different than hating what you're doing. I do not like filling out expense reports, even though I know I get reimbursed for money that I spent on behalf of the company. I still just don't like doing it. But that's a part of the job. I also don't like performing employee reviews because I don't like the way the HR process sets them up. I think there's a better way to do it, with is that continuous feedback. Doing one-on-ones with those people that you've been so blessed with being able to lead. I think there's a better way, not in that annual process. And I know some companies are doing it twice a year and quarterly and things like that, but I think it's still the same process and they're just multiplying it. But I could be wrong. I'm more than willing to read any of those things. Now, next, rule number 4, execute what you practiced. Now, you might be thinking, hey, this is business. This isn't a sport. Well, there's still plenty of things that we test in business. We have business continuity plans. We have disaster recovery plans. We have product testing. Basically, the way in which you're going to use something in a production environment, make sure you have done everything you possibly can to ensure its success in your test environment. Then document how you tested it, so when it moves to production, you have tested it in the same way in which you've already done it in that environment. If there are differences in your test environment, in your production environment, you should note them ahead of time. I understand not every test system is going to be identical to production. In an ideal world, it would definitely be there. But I think a lot of what Kobe is meaning from that, not just that testing part, is don't go and try and do something you've never done before without at least acquiring some level of knowledge on it. You know, I didn't just go start off trying to make beer or distill alcohol without first acquiring some knowledge. And then I'm going to try to apply that knowledge. And that is where the beautiful part comes in, because we know every time we try to go do something new, we're going to fail a lot more than we're going to succeed. And it's very humbling. And I think everyone should do it. This is why I picked up doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I had never done it before. I had a good idea as to what it was going to be like. I didn't realize how hard it was going to be. But I got to tell you, I'm enjoying it every day. I've got all of these injuries and I am still out there doing it because I love the process more so than what pain I'm inflicting on myself, I guess is the best way to do it, because my shoulders hurt, my knees hurt, my back hurts. Basically, I just feel like I'm getting old. All right, how are we doing on time? 11 minutes, halfway in, and we are now at rule number 5, learn from greatness. Another one of those that is just seems obvious, but I don't think that we all do it. You may have heard of the notion of standing on the shoulders of giants. Because see, every generation that comes next should stand on the shoulders of the previous generation, so we're continuously improving. Now, that is different than providing the next generations more comfort, because comfortable times wind up producing weak results. Now, weak results wind up producing great times. So the idea is, how can we continue providing a level of stress in which we are going to have to overcome in order to continuously improve? Because as the ninja would say, at some point in time, we've got to get out of this solar system. The sun's going to die. And if we're not doing something in order to progress mankind into that way of getting out of this universe, then the species dies and we're all extinct, even though we are long gone. So, how do we learn from greatness? I think one of the ways in which we can do it is by continuously implementing first principles design thinking. Take the knowledge that we have today and build a rocket ship, like what Elon Musk has chosen to do. He didn't build a rocket ship based upon the old Apollo model. He did it based on what we know today about traveling to space and designed something quite fascinating. We should try to do this all the time. First principles design thinking is a great strategic approach that you can apply to your life. You can apply to business. You can apply it to basically anything that you want. You just have to do it. Now, when I'm reminded of this learning from greatness, this is one of the few things that I miss about living in the Washington, D.C. area. When I needed to think, when I was feeling down about myself, I would go out to the Washington Monument. And it didn't matter to me if it was raining, if it was snowing, as long as it wasn't raining and really windy. It would probably be the only time I wouldn't do this, because if it's just rain, umbrella's fine. But when it's raining and windy, I don't want the water just blowing. Then the umbrella becomes useless. But anyway, so I would walk from the Washington Monument, across the street to the World War II Memorial. Now, the World War II Memorial is probably my favorite. No, not probably. It is my favorite. And I especially love it at night. I think it's beautiful. In each one of the, I don't know what the right word to call it, but the pillars, each one of the pillars had a quote on it. And each one of the pillars is about one of the United States, one of the states inside there. And so when I was feeling down, I would read those words from these great people. And I would just kind of go, how can I feel down? I get to stand on these shoulders of these great people. They've paved this way. So I have an obligation to continue moving forward. And so this is probably one of the big reasons why I read so much now, and why I'm trying to do this show is that, well, I'm hoping that one of you all out there will take something that I've said, and maybe you might think it's great. And so you get to learn from me if you want one tidbit of valuable information, and then, hey, pay it forward. So, rule number 6, learn from your wins and losses. I think it's really easy for us to learn from a loss. You know, when it really could be in anything that failed. We should take a look at that. And I tell my teams, whenever we do a root cause analysis, what is something we could have done, and when could we have done it to have prevented this failure? There's always something. It's not about it's not about blame. Like this should be, when you're doing a root cause analysis, if blame starts coming into it, you as the leader have to time out, stop. Not what this is about. What it's about is how we can all learn from that mistake. We can document what we could have done. We can update procedures. We can update policies if necessary. We all collectively learn because it's a case study. There's a reason why at many top business schools around the world all use case studies. They use case studies because you get to learn from a good example of a bad example. Most times. Now, sometimes they will bring in things that went well, and that's great too. But but in that root cause analysis, you've got a case study of what failed. Now, let's make sure we don't make those same mistakes. So I definitely can see that. In winning, it's the same way. Now, one of the things that first comes to mind when I hear this, what can you learn from winning? My dad growing up used to say in baseball games that if you can beat a team by 10 runs, you should have been able to beat them by 20 runs. And this would have been in baseball. So you could have gone back and looked at, well, what else could we have done? What could we have done to get this to market faster? What could we have done to minimize the amount of bugs in that production release? It could be anything, but there's always something that we could have done. Did we pick the right partners? Even though everything seemed to have gone off and we classified it as a win, sometimes you can implement like chaos monkeys into this thing, which basically, well, that's a software program, but take that same winning scenario and say, well, what if this didn't occur? What if this one piece that did go off correctly didn't? And create the scenario. How would we have reacted? These are called tabletop exercises. Tabletops, again, also help us to think about how we would react in the event that X happens, then we will do Y. So I think you can definitely learn from both the wins and the losses. Now, I wasn't really expecting Kobe to be a little bit philosophical. I always thought he was kind of about a man about his business. But in this next one, number 7, practice mindfulness. I think that is, in looking at it, that's pretty much his only philosophical one to me. I think it's a good one. Let's see. Another way to look at mindfulness is how you can show empathy towards your teams, towards your coworkers, being in the moment, situational awareness, all those kind of things. You really want to be connected to all of the people and customers and things that you are having to associate with. So this way you are collecting all of the data and can make informed decisions. There's always going to be events and situations that are going to affect your teammates, those that you're charged with leading, your supervisors, your peers, and be cognizant of that. Be mindful of those moments, because those are the times when you need to help in whatever way your people at their time of need, because you should know what it is that they need. You might be thinking, how is that possible? Well, as leaders, we got to become connected with all of these people around us. So we should get to know them. We're going to know that when they're quiet, they want some space. They're working through it. They got to work through their things on their own. And when they're ready, they're going to come talk. Be ready for that. Help them in those particular times. Other people need to talk through whatever's bothering them. Be there for that. You may have some mixes. So you got to be there. Be mindful of the surroundings, because that's going to help you get them back to performing at their optimal levels. That's our goal, right? One of these days I'm actually going to look up the actual numbers, but for whatever reason, what seems to keep coming back to me is that in a 40-hour work week, we can only expect to receive 26 hours of productivity out of our employees, even of ourselves. So what I'm trying to do is always figure out, how can I get that from 26, or maximize a 26, but get it from 26 to 32. I don't want to be greedy, but that 26 to 32, that's just 6 more hours of productivity. That's almost a full day's worth of productivity. But what if I only get 2? That's fine. I'm just trying to get more out of that. And this is also why I'm a huge opponent to yelling at your people. Because when you do that, you might get a short-term result, but you've just crushed this person. And now that person, you might get that small little bit of improvement, but they're going to backslide, and you've basically crushed them. So I've always believed in that. You have to have tough conversations, but we want them to take accountability for their actions and let them come up with the way in which they're going to correct it that you can agree to. And by doing so, because they still know they got called into the boss's office and you had to have a tough conversation, even if it was a virtual office, but you don't have to do it in a way in which it's going to keep your employee down. So even when you do that, what do you need to do next? What you need to do next is provide easy wins for that person that makes them feel like they're back a part of the team, and that they get on that winning track. Winning is contagious, so is losing. So provide those small wins so you can get that person the momentum they need to get back to producing in a way in which you know they can produce. That's my aspect. Number 8, be ambitious. Absolutely. Goals that you set in life should be challenging. I've always found it interesting why people want to play down to an opponent. Like, hey, you're going to win. Why do you want to do that? Is the win more important than the victory over someone that provides you a challenge? Now, there's a difference in that that other person might be your training partner of some type, and they need to practice, and they have to practice against better people. Because when you go against better people, you will get better. So be ambitious in all your goals. And work, set those goals, stretch yourself, push yourself. Make them realistic, but challenging enough that it feels rewarding when you accomplish it. And by doing that, you will continuously get better, which goes right back to Kobe's rule number 1, which I absolutely love. Now, number 9, believe in your team. Now, this is really difficult for you first-time managers and leaders out there because you were used to being a doer. You were used to being an individual contributor on a team. Now you've moved into a position of management and you're trying to find your style for leading. You have to delegate. You have to trust that they're going to get things done. They may not get it done the exact same way you will. They may not get it done as fast as you will. But your job is to help them to a point to where they will. That's that aspect of amplifying your skill sets, your passions across your team. And once they believe in that mission and you have been able to exponentially then at that point get things to market faster, produce things to get into production faster, because you have shown them your way. You got into management for a reason. Someone chose you to be a manager for a reason. Don't disappoint them. Learn your leadership style. And the number one thing you can do for your team is to trust them. Now, trust doesn't come without being vulnerable first, because when you can show them your vulnerabilities, then they too, because we have this aspect of, if I tell you something, you're going to want to tell me something. It's an exchange of information. We don't want someone to have one thing over us. It's a general human trait. So use that to your advantage. Open up, be vulnerable, because they too will, and that builds trust. And when you build trust, they'll get things done for you. And the last one from the Mamba, learn storytelling. We connect with people over stories. Stories have been passed down from generation to generation. Stories of our families, stories of our successes, stories of our failures. Get them to connect. And when they connect, you're going to see that people will want to follow. So I believe, we are at the 27-minute mark. So that roughly means we'll probably be close. We're just under 30, which is where I'd like to keep them. Hope you got something out of the Mamba and Kobe's 10 rules for life. And to me, this is all about leadership and success. So hopefully you like this. If you did, give me a thumbs up. If not, tell me I sucked. Either way, give me some of that constructive feedback. Really need it. Don't forget to subscribe. And as always, have an amazing day. Take care.